This is a reading from the book entitled Catholic Prophecy, The Coming Chastisement by Yves Dupont. (53:14) September 10th, 1820. I saw the church of St. Peter. It had been destroyed, but for the sanctuary and the main altar. St. Michael came down into the church clad in his suit of armor, and he paused, threatening with his sword a number of unworthy pastors who wanted to enter. That part of the church which had been destroyed was promptly fenced in with light timber, so that the divine office might be celebrated as it should. Then, from all over the world, came priests and laymen, and they rebuilt the stone walls, since the wreckers had been unable to move the heavy foundation stones. Comment. The actual destruction of the Church of St. Peter does not necessarily follow from what is said here, although it remains a possibility. The Church of St. Peter may stand as a symbol of the Catholic Church, as many privileged souls have warned. Let me reread that sentence. The Church of St. Peter may stand as a symbol of the Catholic Church, which, as many privileged souls have warned, will be almost completely destroyed before being reborn more beautiful and more glorious than ever. 53:15, September 27th, 1820. I saw deplorable things. They were gambling, drinking, and talking in church. They were also courting women. All sorts of abominations were perpetrated there. Priests allowed everything, and said Mass with much irreverence. I saw that few of them were still godly, and only a few had sound views on things. I also saw Jews standing under the porch of the church. All these things caused me much distress. Comment. When I first quoted this in 1964, things were not half so bad as they are now. True, I already had a photograph showing teenage girls twisting in black tights in the sanctuary of a Belgian church, but not as now, of nuns dancing and throwing up their legs while Mass was being celebrated by a number of priests in business suits. In 1964, they were not yet consecrating Coca-Cola and hot dog buns, although it was obvious that many priests had unsound views on many things. Their love of freedom had not yet driven any of them to issue ultimata to the hierarchy or to go on strike, to occupy churches, to canvass protest notes, nor to challenge openly the authority of the Pope and hierarchy. These things are now on record. 53:16, October 1st, 1820. The Church is in great danger. We must pray so that the Pope may not leave Rome. Countless evils would result if he did. They are now demanding something from him. The Protestant doctrine and that of the schismatic Greeks are to spread everywhere. I now see that in this place, Rome, the Catholic Church is being so cleverly undermined that there hardly remain 100 or so priests who have not been deceived. They all work for destruction, even the clergy. A great devastation is now near at hand. Comment. It is clear that these predictions refer to the same period. However, one may justifiably ask, is this really our period? Was not the Church in great danger in the 19th century too? To both questions the answer is yes. For at the time of this prophecy, the arrest of Pius VII was already a thing of the past. As of the events of 1870, it cannot be said that they match the details of the prophecy. On the other hand, the specific mention of Russia, as will be seen later, makes it clear that this is indeed our own period, as it is hardly necessary to point out that Russia was no threat to the Church in the 19th century. 53:17, October 4th, 1820. When I saw the Church of St. Peter in ruins, and the manner in which so many of the clergy were themselves busy at this work of destruction, none of them wishing to do it openly in front of the others, I was in such distress that I cried out to Jesus with all my might, imploring his mercy. Then I saw before me the heavenly spouse, and he spoke to me for a long time. He said, among other things, that this translation of the Church from one place to another meant that she would seem to be in complete decline, but she would rise again, even if there remained but one Catholic. The Church would conquer again because she does not rest on human counsels and intelligence. It was also shown to me that there were almost no Christians left in the old acceptation of the Word. 53:18, October 7th, 1820. As I was going through Rome with Saint Francois and the other saint, we saw a great palace engulfed in flames from top to bottom. I was very much afraid that the occupants would be burned to death because no one came forward to put out the fire. As we came nearer, however, the fire abated, and we saw the blackened building. We went through a number of magnificent rooms, untouched by the fire, and finally we reached the Pope. He was sitting in the dark and slept in a large armchair. He was very ill and weak. He could no longer walk. The ecclesiastics in the inner circle looked insincere and lacking in zeal. I did not like them. I told the Pope of the bishops who are to be appointed soon. I told him also that he must not leave Rome. If he did so, it would be chaos. He thought that the evil was inevitable, and that he should leave in order to save many things besides himself. He was very much inclined to leave Rome, and he was insistently urged to do so. The Pope is still attached to the things of this earth in many ways. 53:19. The Church is completely isolated and as if completely deserted. It seems that everyone is running away. Everywhere I see great misery, hatred, treason, rancor, confusion, and an utter blindness. O city, what is threatening thee? The storm is coming. Do be watchful. 53:20, 1820 or 21, no precise date. I also saw the various regions of the earth. My guide, Jesus, named Europe, and pointing to a small and sandy region, he uttered these remarkable words: "Here is Prussia, the enemy." Then he showed me another place to the north, and he said, "This is Moskva, the land of Moscow, bringing many evils." Comment. Here the mention of Prussia may lead to the inference that this prophecy applies to the 1870 events. The Pope lost his temporal power and became a virtual prisoner because the French troops which were protecting him were recalled to France during the Franco-Prussian War. However, the mention of Russia is unmistakable. Moreover, there exists other prophecies saying that Prussia, or East Germany, will be instrumental in starting World War III. 53:21, June 1st, 1821. Among the strangest things that I saw were long processions of bishops. Their thoughts and utterances were made known to me through images issuing from their mouths. Their faults towards religion were shown by external deformities. A few had only a body with a dark cloud of fog instead of a head. Others had only a head. Their bodies and hearts were like thick vapors. Some were lame, others were paralytics, others were asleep or staggering. 53:22. I saw what I believed to be nearly all the bishops of the world, but only a small number were perfectly sound. I also saw the Holy Father, God-fearing and prayerful. Nothing left to be desired in his appearance, but he was weakened by old age and by much suffering. His head was lolling from side to side, and it dropped onto his chest as if he were falling asleep. He often fainted and seemed to be dying, but when he was praying, he was often comforted by apparitions from heaven. Then his head was erect, but as soon as it dropped again onto his chest, I saw a number of people looking quickly right and left, that is, in the direction of the world. 53:23. Then I saw that everything that pertained to Protestantism was gradually gaining the upper hand, and the Catholic religion fell into complete decadence. Most priests were lured by the glittering but false knowledge of young school teachers, and they all contributed to the work of destruction. 53:24. In those days faith will fall very low, and it will be preserved in some places only, in a few cottages and in a few families which God has protected from disasters and wars. Comment. The symbolism of the first paragraph may be interpreted in a number of ways. Heads like fog may mean errors of thinking. Heads only, no bodies and no hearts, may mean high intellect but divorced from reality and with no charity. Lame may mean performance of duty in a half-hearted way. Paralytics may mean powerless to do anything, although the knowledge of what should be done is not impaired. Asleep may denote an unawareness of the vital problems which are facing the Church. Staggering may mean that the burden of responsibility is too heavy. The second paragraph may refer to an ecumenic council. Few bishops are sound. The Pope is holy, but old and tired. His head is swaying. He hesitates. He falls asleep. He fails to grasp the really important issues of the day. The others are very much concerned with the world. Meanwhile, Protestantism is penetrating into the Catholic Church. Like those bishops who have only a head, many priests are more interested in knowledge than in charity. But it is a false knowledge, worldly wise, overlooking the essentials, similar to the knowledge of young school teachers who have been taught facts instead of principles, science instead of philosophy. As a result of all this, faith will fall very low. But the faith will survive in a few families which God will protect during the coming disasters. 5325, 1820 to 21, again no precise date. I see many excommunicated ecclesiastics who do not seem to be concerned about it, or even aware of it, yet they are, ipso facto, excommunicated whenever they cooperate to enterprises, enter into associations, and embrace opinions on which an anathema has been cast. It can be seen thereby that God ratifies the decrees, orders, and interdictions issued by the head of the Church, and that he keeps them in force, even though men show no concern for them, reject them, or laugh them to scorn. Comment. There is no doubt that this prophecy applies to our times. Writing in past issues of World Trends, I have cited many instances of bishops and priests who evinced opinions irreconcilable with Catholic doctrine. 5326, March 22nd, 1820. I saw very clearly the errors, the aberrations, and the countless sins of men. I saw the folly and the wickedness of their actions against all truth and all reason. Priests were among them, and I gladly endured my suffering so that they may return to a better mind. Comment. This prophecy only states the presence of errors without comments, but some other prophecies are more specific. It is not unduly difficult to recognize the errors condemned by Pius XII in Humani Generis and by St. Pius X in Pascendi Dominis Gregis on modernism. I cannot elaborate on this subject. I did so in issue number 10 of World Trends, in which the main errors of our times were examined in number 6. I gave evidence that many of the clergy had fallen for these errors. Some young avant-garde priests are now disseminating them freely in parish bulletins in the Diocese of Melbourne. 5327, April 12, 1820. I had another vision of the Great Tribulation. It seems to me that a concession was demanded from the clergy, which could not be granted. I saw many older priests, especially one, who wept bitterly. A few younger ones were also weeping, but others, and the lukewarm among them, readily did what was demanded. It was as if people were splitting into two camps. Comment. This is another significant passage in the light of current developments. Catholics are divided, and this division was brought about by the reckless changes in our liturgy and the doctrinal deviations that were bound to result. 5328, January 27, 1822. I saw a new pope who will be very strict. He will estrange from him the cold and lukewarm bishops. He is not a Roman, but he is Italian. He comes from a place which is not very far from Rome, and I think he comes from a devout family of royal blood. But there must still be for a while much fighting and unrest. Comment. This one of the countless prophecies announcing a strong pope, and one of the few adding that he will be of royal blood. But we shall see more of these. This pope will make use of his God-given power, the mandate every pope receives from Christ, and which he has the duty to use unhesitatingly and resolutely. 5329, October 22nd, 1822. Very bad times will come when non-Catholics will lead many people astray. A great confusion will result. I saw the battle also. The enemies were far more numerous, but the small army of the faithful cut down whole rows of enemy soldiers. During the battle, the Blessed Virgin stood on a hill, wearing a suit of armor. It was a terrible war. At the end, only a few fighters for the just cause survived, but the victory was theirs. Comment. This is probably the decisive birch tree battle, which is described in countless prophecies. It will be fought in Westphalia, Germany. under the royal leader who is to become Emperor of the West. All the odds will seem to be against him, but after taking his troops to Mass, he will nevertheless engage the enemy and win. German and Russian troops will flee in disarray. Both the birch tree battle and the rule of the great monarch have been described by so many prophecies from the 6th century onward that it is quite unreasonable to dismiss these predictions as nonsense. Only ignorance can be an excuse. The fact is, contrary to a widely held notion, communism is not here to stay, and democracy is going through its last senile stage. Both the West and the East are diseased, adhering obstinately to their respective follies, or seeking coexistence between their two dying systems, and unable to see that something else is coming. 5330. April 22nd, 1823. I saw that many pastors allowed themselves to be taken up with ideas that were dangerous to the church. They were building a great, strange, and extravagant church. Everyone was to be admitted in it in order to be united and have equal rights. Evangelicals, Catholics, sects of every description. Such was to be the new church. But God had other designs. Comment. This passage is so plain that no elaboration seems necessary. Sister Emmerich alluded earlier to the same error. All efforts currently made in a spirit of appeasement to unite the churches will be cut short by the great Holocaust. Reunion will never come about through compromise. Conclusion. We have reached the end of our encounter with Anna Katharina Emmerich. What she has told us is anything but heartening. However, there is no cause for despair, for the Catholic who is strong in faith. The cross is our symbol. It is an instrument of torture, but it is also the instrument of salvation. Catholics must never forget this trilogy: sacrifice, suffering, salvation.